My name is Nyla Cross. I'm a second-year journalism major and Spanish minor from Los Angeles, California, and I'm so honored to be your moderator for today's State of the Media Forum discussion. Now more than ever, it is imperative that aspiring journalists are privy to our changing media landscape and are equipped with the necessary resources to have promising careers. Every day as an aspiring professional can seem a little more unprecedented than the last, with the increasing spread of misinformation and disinformation, the rampant use of social media and artificial intelligence, and the fear of losing integral press freedoms and First Amendment rights. This discussion serves to provide insight to people on every end of the news consumption spectrum, aspiring media professionals, seasoned journalists, and the average news engager. This is a community conversation that was inspired by a clear community need. This past February, I accompanied Dean Wilson to a media roundtable in Washington, D.C., hosted by the International Center for Journalists, Vanderbilt University, Lumina, and the Freedom Forum. There, we spent multiple days talking to industry professionals, professors, and students, and international journalists. Journalists from Kenya, Nigeria, Russia, Ukraine, Argentina, and Cuba all reflected on experiences and obstacles that they faced trying to report accuracy and truth in their countries that were void of press freedoms or had state-owned media. The resounding consensus was that international reporters believed the United States was heading, unfortunately, in a similar direction. Today, these media professionals will provide invaluable insights and perspectives that will hopefully answer some of your questions about the current state of our media. We'll discuss how to combat misinformation, establish trust between the public and the media, how to navigate social media and artificial intelligence, how to stay motivated as a journalist, how to have an entrepreneurial spirit in your industry, and much more. I encourage each of you to listen intently and be curious, no matter what your relationship is with news or journalism. This is a conversation that includes all of us. And because of that, I want to emphasize again that this is a nonpartisan discussion, because accuracy, information, and truth matter to everyone, regardless of demographic, race, religion, or political affiliation. That said, this discussion will not ignore the uncertainty or fear that some journalists may face in these times, but instead will focus on how we can remain steadfast and determined in our pursuit of public service. It is my privilege to introduce to you all of our incredible panelists, all of whom have dedicated years to journalism and have a fervent passion for storytelling and providing accurate and impactful information. You can review all of the panelists' full bios in the booklet that you received at the front of the event. So to my left is Rashida Jones, former president of MSNBC and two-time Hampton University alumna. Please give a round of applause to Rashida Jones. We have Maurice Jones, the Vice President of News for WHRO Public Media. Jeffrey Reese, the Director of Content at the Virginian Pilot. Melinda Collot, Planning Manager at NBC4, Telemundo 44 in Washington, D.C. Anjali Shah, CEO and Editor-in-Chief of Charlottesville Tomorrow. Dr. Kareem Mahanes, the Director of Reporting Fellows for the Pulitzer Center. And last but certainly not least, Jessica Larche, anchor and investigative reporter for WTKR. So thank you all so much again for being here, taking the time to speak with me and with all of our students, faculty, and guests today. I really meant it when I said your perspectives and insights are invaluable and will be incredibly amazing to hear from the crowd. So let's jump right in. Rashida, I'll start with you. And of course, all of you are equipped to answer all of these questions, so please jump in where you see fit. So Rashida, although you were the former president of MSNBC, which is a national network, you started off at WTKR, a local network, while you were here at Hampton. I think now a lot of people see that news is very nationalized, right? Our national news networks, our headlines are all kind of seem to be coming from the big networks or the White House. Can you speak about the importance of local news and whether you think it might be more important now in these times than ever before?
Absolutely. When you look at the outlets that are most trusted, where audiences are going for personalized, relevant information, it's local news. Local news continues to rank as some of the most trusted media outlets that currently exist right now. I wear it as a badge of honor, not only from a professional standpoint. By starting in local, I learned some of the core skills and fundamentals, because in local, you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to know how to do everything. You have to know how to write, how to edit, how to pull graphics, how to pull video, how to log, how to make calls. And so that kind of hard work and entrepreneurial spirit is something that I've brought to every single step of the way. So there's not only what you get from it working in that space, but it's what the audience gets from it. When you're in local news, the content that you're covering, you have to know your market. You have to cover that market effectively. You have to cover it fairly. There is something different about covering the world and having a worldly view on things versus covering your neighborhood and your neighbors and your family and friends. And I think you just bring a different sensibility to it. And so it's one of the reasons why it's important for us to continue to pour into local news. It's important for us to continue to consume local news content, because if you don't consume it, the pipeline to create it continues to dry up, because it's where the most important information that you need to know from your day will come from.
Hello? There we go. If I may add to that, and I also want to give a shout out to Rashida. She was a full-time student at Hampton University while she was producing the morning show at WTKR.
I was not sleeping.
No, she was not sleeping. But local news is so incredibly important, because when you turn on that TV or scroll on your phone or stream on an app, you are seeing people who live in your community. I like to tell people, I live here too. Hampton Roads has been my home for 15 years. I moved here not knowing anyone, but planted roots here. And so when I'm sharing a story about something that happens in Hampton and Norfolk and Portsmouth and Williamsburg, these are places where my feet have actually touched the ground. These are places where I have developed friends, where my family has expanded here. And so there is a specific commitment that local journalists have to the community, that we care about what happens here. Sometimes the criticism may be, well, why did you talk about this on the news, or why did you talk about that? It's only because it's this type of story. Well, I care about it too. I want to know what's happening down the street from me, what's happening a few blocks away, what's happening a few miles away. And so there's that commitment, and we are going to be passionate about stories that we follow through on day after day after day after year. There are some stories that I cover now in terms of investigative pieces that I started 15 years ago, that I'm still following through on now, which is a commitment we have at News 3. But it's because I care, because I live here too. This is my community too.
Yeah, so my journey is almost exactly the opposite, which is I started in international news. I started abroad, and I started in big news outlets, and now I'm running Charlottesville Tomorrow, which is a local news organization in Central Virginia. And the reason my journey went the way it was is because I started my career thinking, what's the most successful thing? You know, what's success in journalism? And I've really rethought that. I really have. That's huge learning for me in my career. Success comes from your impact on the people you are serving. And I think no matter where you go in your career or however you approach news, thinking about it from terms of impact might change your choices. It did for me. So I'm really, really grateful for my unusual journey.
Yes, if I could just build on what my panelists said regarding local news. At the Pulitzer Center, we have an initiative called Story Reach, and it goes beyond just reporting your story and presenting your story, but the 9 inaugural fellows have to establish a plan on how they reach out to the community. So, for example, we had a fellow from Gary, Indiana, a young lady who is with Capital B website. She was writing about Black maternal health care in Gary and how the steel mills and the kind of legacy of pollution and environmental injustice in Gary has affected the health care of Black women. So not only did she write the story, produce the story, and present it, she also was required to, as part of the fellowship, develop a community action plan where she actually brought in women from the community who talked about their personal journeys with health issues as becoming mothers, their children after they were born dealing with issues of asthma and other environmental diseases. So just kind of building on, we're saying the importance of local news, yes, but then also having that audience engagement. So once it's published, once it's produced, once it's presented, there still has legs to the story by bringing in the community engagement.
I'll also add to the local news aspect is wonderful nuggets in referencing to, I live in a unique area of Washington, D.C., where, usually we don't focus on the national news. We are local. We focus on D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And right now, the national news has become local news. We live in a unique area with federal workers, and that matters. Jobs matter to us. Their lives matter to us, and it's so important. That's how you build trust, over the years, and we're going to get into that, I know, a little bit more. And, creating that relationship with your community, making sure that their stories matter, and having those diverse voices, because we do represent large amounts of communities. So local news is where it's at. I'll fight for it all day.
Can I just add, so just to build on that, then the invitation for all of us, given that we know local news really covers the assets that impact your life the most on a day-to-day basis, is how do we keep local news healthy? That's the real question, right? It's hard to debate whether it's important or not. The real question is it going to be funded? Are people going to support it? Are we going to keep enough journalists? We were just lamenting the number of journalists that we now have in the marketplace vis-a-vis what we had 10, 15 years ago. The real question for us as folks who love this community is how do we keep local news robust? How do we keep feet on the street to cover every corner of Hampton Roads to make sure you do know what's going on in the city council and the school board and the planning council and healthcare and all the rest? That, in my mind, is the question for us in this century, is how do we keep local news around for the next century and for our children and grandchildren?
Angeli, I love what you said about leaving an impact in your journalism. I think at its core, journalism is a form of public service. And I think we all have responsibility to the entities of the truth and the public to get everybody accurate information and do that service. And so I guess I'll start with you with this question. How do we as aspiring journalists or media professionals stay motivated in our pursuit of public service in these times?
Well, I can tell you what motivates me. I love going to the newsroom every day. I love it. I love it. It's my happy place. I like being here too. I really appreciate it. But I love our newsroom so much. And part of the reason why I enjoy my time at Charlottesville Tomorrow is because it is an organization that is governed by community members. It is an organization that is governed by diverse community members. And that governance piece, ownership piece, is really, really important. Nowadays, when I talk to journalists who are starting their careers or coming up, I say to them, when you start to think about your career and start to look at the places where you want to learn and grow and form your version of what you think journalism should be in the next 20 years, look at the organizations you're thinking about working with, soup to nuts. Look at where the money comes from. Look at who the ultimate stakeholder is going to be for your boss or your boss's boss, because that will tell you a lot about who you will be working for. And I think that's really important. There's a lot of great newsrooms out there that are working for the communities they serve. And that, frankly, I don't know that was the case when I first started, because it was in the heyday of corporate ownership. It was in the heyday of working for clicks. But the great thing about today is that you have other options.
You talked about impact, and this is another advocacy moment for local news. Is the great thing is when I will go to the grocery store, or I will be at a music festival, or anywhere in the community, some of the most impactful stories that I've done in my career came from conversations with people I met in community. Sometimes you feel like, and I know the young people who are journalism students, you get the task of, okay, you need to find a story and pitch a story, and like, oh, where do I go to find a story? It is in the conversations that you're having in community, and you find that thread and you continue to pull that thread, and it's making an impact in one person's life that may shine a light and make an impact on dozens or hundreds or thousands of people's lives. And so that just goes to the importance of relationship and conversation in community for stories that have an impact in changing people's lives. We've done reports at WTKR that I've done that have helped in full or in part lead to the exoneration of people who've been wrongfully incarcerated, have shined a light on criminal medical professionals, thankfully before anyone was so seriously injured that it turned into a deadly situation. And so these are not just accolades you put in a bio, you share those things to say journalism matters, the impact matters. And without that, without shining a light on those dark places, it goes hidden. And so that impact is so incredibly important, and especially to the young people, if they can really keep the impact part front and center, I think that is what can motivate us through a time that is incredibly uncertain and evolving. It's the impact.
Jessica, part of the reason people come up to you in grocery stores and music festivals, that sounds fun. Mm-hmm. What music festival?
I'm outside.
I see. I was like, wow. But part of the reason is because people trust you. You've not only developed that relationship, you've been in this market 15 years, did you say? Consistently out in the community. You've done stories that prove to them, oh, she's here for change. She is part of the community. She is my neighbor. That's not something to take for granted because you poured that effort into the work to get people to trust you to come and give you their most vulnerable and personal moments. But that's something that you can do when you're in local news, but all people are not the same, all journalists are not the same, all local journalists are not the same. You poured that into the community, and that's what you get in return.
Mentors have showed us that, and so that's why we just want the young people to keep that part front. You can look cute on TV and on a reel, and that's all fine and dandy, but that cannot be your motivation for this work, because it will never last.
That was actually a great segue. You talking about people using social media as a form of journalism. I think now we have seen an increase in citizen journalism, but also with people who just like to read the news and go on social media and kind of repeat what they've read. And so I want to start with you, Rashida, again, and I want to ask, how do people combat the misinformation and the disinformation they see online or on social media, and kind of vet that and be able to find what is the real, true, accurate information from that?
I deal with that all the time at home because I have 4 young people who, despite their mother working in this field, working for trusted news organizations, will absolutely believe whatever they see on TikTok. They'll reach out to me and vet it, like, Mom, is it true? No, it's not true. So I know how this works. Like, it's shorthand, it's digestible, it's chunky, it looks professional enough, or the person is speaking in my voice and my style, and so I automatically put trust into whatever they're saying. And so my caution would be, yes, use the platforms. I have come to accept the fact that there are many young people who are not going to turn on a TV set at a certain time of day to watch a set time newscast, but they are going to consume the content on other platforms. So watch on TikTok, watch on Insta, watch on all of these platforms, but make sure you're watching from sources that are trusted. All of the trusted news organizations, whether they're local or whether they're national, have some presence on those platforms. And so know whose content you're consuming, know from where it's coming. There are people who look like regular people who are delivering factual information, but you have to go a step deeper. You have to be critical and curious and skeptical of what you're seeing. Just because it sounds interesting, because it looks professional, because it's polished, doesn't mean that it's real. And so I say yes to the platforms, but be skeptical of the source and the person or the outlet from where it's coming. And also realize some of it might just be, I repeated something that I saw somewhere, and these things catch fire, and I saw her TikTok about it, and I saw this person's TikTok, then I repeated it, and now it's become truth. That happens because people don't necessarily have ill intent, but it just spreads very quickly. There's the other piece of it where there are people who are actively trying to put bad or incorrect information out there to get you to think in a certain way or to get you to believe a certain thing. So my advice is to be skeptical, be curious. And what I would say to the aspiring and growing journalists in the room, you guys innovate how to use those platforms to bring truth to light. If we flood the zone with enough accurate, fair information, it will help to bury some of the other stuff that just isn't of value or isn't intended to be of value.
I'm going to just jump in here. I also think it's basic rule of life. Think for your damn self. Like, I'm telling you, I just think people have given up their brains to some of this stuff without really thinking through, is this real? Hey, it happens in newsrooms, by the way. When Houston was flooded like 6-7 years ago, there was a picture of a shark swimming on the interstate, and I had, digital producers all, and I'm like, just calm down. This is obviously not true. So you really have to think for yourself, and this dips a little bit into the AI thing, which is you can be scammed really easily in the world. So skepticism is your biggest weapon against this sort of thing. Always check the sources. When you read an article, if it's a legitimate organization, they're going to link to the documents that support those. Click on those damn documents. Take a look. Because here's what they'll tell you. You can see whether they've taken something out of context or not. Because believe me, you can be accurate and unfair. The two don't go together necessarily. All you have to do is take something out of context. So it's really important to think for yourself, be skeptical, check for the sources, make sure that what's being said checks in with what you read yourself.
And doing your own research doesn't mean just searching for outlets that verify what you think. Just because you Googled a fact and there are some sources that come up, they also may be BS sources too. So doing your own research, go to the original source, doesn't mean just go find another outlet that's repeating the same thing that's not true.
One thing, running a news organization in a community like in Central Virginia, we grapple with these questions all the time. We're not a giant organization. We are growing. We are hiring. So check it out.
For those graduates.
Yeah. It's a great newsroom. Did I mention that?
Sounds wonderful.
But we're always deciding where to put our resources. And frankly, at the local level, we're not going to try to flood the zone of Instagram. We cannot fight the algorithm. A lot of the algorithms of these social media companies want you to have things that are going to get you riled up. And what we provide, you might get riled up by some of the news and the reporting that we do, but it's not the kind of riled up that's going to keep you in your seat or keep you looking at the phone. It's the kind of riled up that's going to get you out into the community. And that's not necessarily the goal of Insta, of TikTok, of Yik Yak. It's not the goal. The goal is to keep you looking at your phone and on to the next thing. So, I have a colleague who tells me, at some point we have to give our community information, and the community has to take some responsibility for how they get news, how they get information as well. If you're sitting at a buffet and you had to take a bite of every single thing in order to find the dish that you wanted, you would be sick at the end. And I think a lot of our social media is like that.
Jeffrey, I really liked what you said about AI and starting to talk about it, because I think it's a topic that we can no longer avoid, especially in the media industry, in the world of journalism. So I'll start with you with this question. How do journalists navigate the use of artificial intelligence, maybe use it to our advantage or to our benefit, and how do we make sure that we're not using it for evil?
So it's a really good question, and we're in the infancy of it. So we're approaching it with our usual skepticism. Which I think is the safe thing to do. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a tool that's useful. So 20 years ago, we had big discussions about, do we use Wikipedia as a source? And here's the thing, we always tell reporters, you can use it as your initial source, but then you have to go to the actual sources. I think a similar approach with AI, which is, what are the things it can do that will enhance our jobs, make it a little easier? Maybe we can teach AI to search and find photos, or for those of you in the broadcast media, clips faster. Maybe we can use it to write standard game stories, because all you have to do is plug in the numbers, and it's kind of a trope the way we write those. So there might be little ways in which it can help us, but you always have to approach it really skeptically, which is, do we know this from an actual human being? Can we verify this? Like I said, I've been in a newsroom where people have gotten excited about photoshopped stuff. It's happened twice. Once we caught it before it went in the paper. Once we didn't, we had to run a retraction and do the whole 9 yards because we didn't catch it. So it's sort of a dangerous time, because we deal in facts, some social media sites, they peddle disinformation. We're the ones trying to deal in facts. And every time we slip up, it eats into our credibility.
I will say I have been slow to fully dive into AI, but my pace is picking up in the sense that, it is unfortunate talking about the landscape of our newsrooms that it is rare to find a newsroom that has not been affected by layoffs and cuts. And the journalists that remain have the same commitment to truth and facts, but the amount that we're covering is the same. And so, for example, in our newsroom, in our company scripts, we have something called Engine Room. And it's essentially a chat GPT. And I was like, I don't know about that. I need to read all 500 pages of this document. And yes, we should. But it can be a starting place, to your point, right? If there is an evening where I am anchoring our 5 and 6 p.m. broadcast and a huge document comes in that is in my wheelhouse and we want to be able to, and it's urgent to share it with our community, it can be a place to start, to upload the document, give me the highlights, and if there's something really important, then I'm like, oh, wait, is that in here? So I go to that page and read it for myself, and I read the pages around it for context. So the idea of I upload something, I'm a copy and paste, and then I'm gonna move on with my life, and I got other stuff to do, in my view, is not a wise way to use AI. But it can be very helpful in a newsroom where all of us are multitasking to give us a place to start our research.
I think AI, I think us having an important conversation about it is, we've been talking about it for years now. And it's been coming up every quarter in every quarter meeting that I've been attending with my company. And the fact that they're talking about it, how to use it, how to make it safe, how to have safeguards around it. And a lot of conversations that we've been having, well, let's take control of AI before it takes control of us. And there are so many certificates out there that you can go and get, now at different universities where you can kind of understand the tools and use it to your benefit, use it to the benefit of your company. And once companies start seeing that, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna start this whatever initiative. I know how to do it because I took that class in AI. So these are ways that you're trying to benefit, because it's coming. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's in other countries. They're using it all over. And, it's just to stay ahead of it.
Linda, my comment dovetails exactly with what you're saying. The Pulitzer Center has an initiative called AI Spotlight, where we have trained 1,600 journalists in 112 countries on how to use AI. And it's not just journalists who are covering tech industry, but just everyday journalists. It's a virtual, online, interactive program. And I just encourage working journalists to take advantage of the AI Spotlight, and if not with us, with Pointer, and just look to see what's out there, because you want to have that training. As Melinda said, you want to be able to say, I took that class, I understand it, I have embraced this, and I'm not afraid of it.
I'm gonna take this from the other side, which is, again, somebody running a newsroom that's growing and thinking about what is the next, Charlottesville Tomorrow is 20 years old this year. What does the next 20 years for this organization look like? Actually, when I think about AI, we use it in our newsroom. It's a productivity tool. It helps me schedule community meetings at a very fast pace. The worst thing in the world is a long email back and forth about when to meet. And so if it can help me avoid that back and forth, I will do it in a heartbeat. I will say I spend a little bit of time thinking, maybe more than I should, thinking about the way artificial intelligence companies train their products. And when you're in a place like Charlottesville, you're in a place like Central Virginia, I can count the number of independent journalists on my fingers. So when you ask ChatGPT a question about Charlottesville, Virginia, about something that's happening in Charlottesville, Virginia, chances are pretty good that answer comes from me or from our organization or one of our colleagues. We are not paid for that work. they might cite us at the very end of it, but we're not getting any traffic. We're not getting donors. And that is work. That is a work product. So I think about it a lot from that point of view. And as an industry, we can pour money into using this technology, but I think we also need to put some resources into how that technology uses us.
I just want to add one other thing. You know, the day is coming because AI is getting better and better. I used ChatGPT once just as an experiment. I said I needed to do an op-ed piece on a religion topic, and I put in the question, and ChatGPT cranked back something that was really, really good. Now, I had to edit it, but the bottom line was it was really good. The day will come when journalists will have to face whether AI gets a byline in their stories. And that'll be in an age when there's already skepticism at a minimum about journalism. When you start introducing that, that is going to be another chapter that all of us are going to have to figure out together. And that day is not long in coming.
Well, it's today. I mean,
Yeah.
if we use the AI to do anything, and we don't use it to do much published work, actually, but if we use it to do anything, we are really transparent about the source of that. I mean, in graphics or things like that, we say, literally, we have a beautiful, one of my colleagues does these beautiful captions. It's like, this was created using this tool, using this prompt, really directly.
The only thing I would challenge here is the idea that the time is coming, the time is coming. The time is here, and it's been here. I would venture to say that many of the people in this room who are class of ... are already using it pretty rigorously. They're already coming up with ways to incorporate it into finding efficiency. Don't look around because I know you are. Finding efficiencies in their work. And so with that, I think there's opportunity to be innovative. And it doesn't mean just to use it for prose. Like one of the ways that I would say people like us generally think about it is go do the work for me. Go write this story. Go write this thing. But there are lots of ways that you can use the technology that you guys will create, you guys will innovate, you guys will come up with that will allow you to spend more time on the creative parts of the job. Whether it's research, I'm doing a panel in a few weeks. I will be sitting in Nyla's chair. She's doing an excellent job moderating, by the way. And I wanted to get a bio on the panelists. I know what they do generally speaking, but help me understand from what point of view they're coming. That was a tool that in 10 seconds was able to pull cited bios that I could then go verify. I'm not going to base a question specifically on that, but just to give me a sense of it. Or, I was doing some translation work. Help me translate this content into this language. Quick, efficient ways to do it. There are ways that you can use it for logging. There are ways that, there are so many different things other than go do the work for me that will allow you to be innovative and spend more of your time on the creative part of the task. So the challenge, the opportunity, I would say, for many of the people in the room and many of the people who are watching is figure out, as you said, figure out how do you learn more about how to utilize the technology. Figure out how you can innovate the technology and then use that to your advantage to give you one step ahead of folks who haven't done that work.
One other thing on AI, if I could, just kind of follow on what Rashida was saying. Just for the students who are in the audience, has anyone had an AI-generated job interview? Because that's something that you have to prepare for as well. We've had the face-to-face job interviews. We've had the online job interviews. We've done that all through COVID. We've got it on Zoom. But the AI-generated job interview is when you sit in front of a screen and all you see is your face. And the questions come up on the screen, you read the screen, and then you speak. AI is listening to your voice, your tone, your vocabulary. It's looking at your facial expressions, and that data is taken, and sometimes it's reviewed by an HR manager, or sometimes if you don't pass muster, it just gets kicked out. So you need to be prepared for that as well. That's just another way of AI in your life. You may be using it for class now, but when you're actually going out there looking for jobs, you have to be prepared for that as well. That's a brave new world. That's scary, and I got that from a student who told me that he actually sat through one of those AI-generated interviews. So be prepared for that as well.
And as we're sitting here talking about AI, social media, TikTok, and Yik Yak, I can't help but, recognize that
Well, we talked about Yik Yak beforehand.
We did, we did.
I just learned something new today about Yik Yak.
I can't help but recognize that these weren't tools that were always available in the world of journalism, right? And so you all have been in the industry for so long, and you've seen so many different trends in the media and how the landscape has changed. Any of you can jump in on this answer. Do any of you see anything particularly unique about this current state of our media or the dynamic?
I think it's a point where, we've been sharing throughout is people go to social first. And that is often where you will learn about breaking news first on your phone. And so, I've been doing this long enough to see the evolution of, you were watching a cable news network and and you saw the breaking, or you were, watching the 5 o'clock news and your local anchors broke a story, whether it was local or national, and then the national would take over for the cut-in, and then, especially with the, Facebook was one thing, but especially with the introduction of Instagram, went from sharing cute vacation pictures to news organizations, oh, this is breaking. It's like, oh, wait, I'm finding out about this on my phone, and then that would send you to the TV. But now you don't even really need to leave your phone to get the information, whether that's from a reputable news source or not. So just, I think, leaning into that. And, from the business of journalism side, how do you, turn that into someone on Instagram, and they follow us on social, and they see us break a story or a story that we've investigated on Insta or TikTok? How does that get them to a place where, again, talking about the business of journalism, where that turns into dollars that fund journalists' salaries? That, I think, is the challenge there. But the commitment still has to be the same. And while we evolve and work, that part of it out, the commitment to the truth, to presenting something factually and engaging and in a digestible way, that can be a lot to manage, but we're here, and we have to meet people where they are, because the idea, there are some in the audience that will, and my mama's in here, she will turn on the news at 5 o'clock because her baby's watching the news, right?
She wants to see what you took from her closet.
Yes, like this jacket today. And so, but for her, that's appointment television. But otherwise, would that be appointment television? For the, the students in here, for the students, raise your hands. How many of you turn on specifically, and professors don't look, how many of you specifically turn on the news on TV? I see.
WHOV TV does not count.
Right. But again, that goes to that point of, if you're not specifically turning on the news or going to a specific newspaper website, where are you consuming your news, and have you verified the source? So we're already there.
And you're journalism students. Think about the world, man.
We're in a world of influencers, right? Everybody's an influencer. And so I think the changing scale of news is that we have to be your influencers, right? So we have to go to where you are in consuming your news. The TikToks of the world, the Instagrams. I know y'all ain't on Facebook. And I'm pretty sure you're not on X, but we are. But we are trying to create a space where you can, we're influencers too. And so we're trying to create that space where they can go there, and you like a reel, or, you start following them, and then you're starting to build that trust. It's almost like TV on digital. And podcasts, we all listen to podcasts, and we always in the car, and we're like, oh, we love such and such, and so that's another way of, when we're talking about the entrepreneur spirit, is if you're, I know you all have different things and different side gigs that you're doing. So if you're doing influencing, whether it's fashion or different things like that, trust there are organizations that are out there looking like, who can we partner with? Who can we bring in to talk to whomever it is about AI, or to talk about fashion, or to talk about technology, or to talk about money. You know, these are always things, the topics, we're always thinking about topics that are important to, you know, our community. So that's a way that we're trying to bridge the gap, and that's where you all come in to help that.
I think, and this didn't just start now, but you were asking about the uniqueness of this moment. A couple of things. One is, I don't recall a moment when the business model of making people angry has been as successful as it is today when it comes to news. That is the success formula. If you can make people angry, you can get an audience coming back, and then you can package that audience and sell it, right? That is a troubling piece of the landscape that we're working in now. If you're a boring enterprise trying to just put facts and truth out there, good luck with that one, right? In the business model imperatives, although I still think it's going to win out and win the day, but we do have to figure out in this crowded market of people who are literally trying to inspire anger and feuds and controversy to bring in an audience, how do you stay true to comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comforted as your mission in journalism? That's, I think, one of our greatest challenges right now, because it doesn't pay as well as it used to.
I will
It's
say
also
this.
endured. Very quickly, the only thing I would add to that is the type of journalism that you're describing is the type of journalism that survived wars, that survived economic turmoil, that survived pandemics. And so I don't think all hope is lost there. The way for this industry to continue on is to continue to prioritize that kind of content. You started with this earlier, and I'll just reinforce it. It means consuming that content. It means resourcing that content. It means prioritizing that content, because that's what will endure past all of this.
And to just follow up on this, so in my job, I do a great deal of content analysis, looking at what gets read, for how long, is it being shared on social, all those things. And here's the reality: watchdog journalism actually does very, very well. It draws in audiences, for sure. Restaurants does really great. Like, it's put your money in restaurants. But the thing that doesn't, it's that the city council did this on Tuesday. But guess what impacts your life more? You know, I'm not saying that the watchdog stuff we've done doesn't impact people's lives. It does. But, you know, when they changed that ordinance on Tuesday, suddenly that's a change in your life. One of my great examples that I always give is several of the Hampton Road cities have a shared trash authority, like to pick up the trash and all this stuff. And every so often they change vendors. And it's a very boring story that does not get a lot of traction. But here's the thing: they screw that up, it's actually going to cost you. It's going to come out of your wallet. And so one of the things I try to emphasize a lot with my reporters is, if it's important and you think we need to write it, figure out how to maximize the audience. With the Trash Authority, we did a long Q&A. Basically, I literally had in the headline, "This is why you should care about garbage." And we just did a long Q&A about some of the changes they were contemplating at the time, and it was kind of a risky thing that they were contemplating. Now, they backed off and all that, but it just really is, it's those things that don't, watchdog journalism, everybody's for that. Everybody wants to read a scandal. What doesn't do well is the mundane stuff that actually impacts your life every day.
And I want to touch on that too, because that guides decisions in our editorial meetings in the newsroom about how are we going to best use our resources. I want to shout out my news director, Ed Reams, right there in the wave, Ed. there is a champion of our newsroom. And so we talk all right, clap for Ed, all right. But we talk every day in our editorial meetings about what is going to be the greatest impact to our viewers by leveraging the resources that we have. Is it, most important for a reporter to cover a fire at a home that was vacant and there was no injury to a person? Or do we cover an ordinance about the garbage pickup that is going to impact people, and what discussions are unfortunately there is violence that is going to happen in our community, and do we leverage a reporter to cover a shooting where no one was injured as opposed to covering a court case or a development in a neighborhood that is going to have wide reach? And those discussions, and in our editorial meetings, everyone feels open to be able to share, well, I want to fight for this story, I fight for that one. And in that diversity of thought is where we usually get to what is the answer that is going to best serve our community. But that, again, just goes to the types of discussions that we're having in newsrooms that are increasingly getting smaller and smaller in staff, and how do we leverage that to make the best coverage decision on stories that are going to have an impact beyond one headline.
Dr. Haynes, you spoke a little bit about this with your experience with a student having an AI interview. I know from your background in teaching journalism at Bowie State. So I want to point this question towards you to start off. How do student journalists like myself and aspiring media professionals prepare to navigate this landscape? In other words, how do we prepare for our career aspirations and how to be entrepreneurial or gain employment in ways that we might not have considered before?
Yes, I think that your generation has all the tools in front of you. I think when I came up, I didn't have access. But now you have everything that's on your phone. You can create videos, you can create audio, you can create text. And you have the tools within your hands in order to do that. But there are certain people who may not want to be an entrepreneur, may not want to go out on their own. But I encourage them to be an intrapreneur. You may be working for a legacy media outlet. You should always be thinking of ways to innovate the work that you do. You should always be thinking about ways, how can I have kind of cross-team interaction? It may not necessarily be in my job description, but maybe there's another team that needs help, and I can kind of build my my skill set that way. That's very, very, very important. Also, the fact that you are students here, you're taking great classes, I'm sure, communications law, media ethics, media literacy, intro to mass communications, history of journalism. You're taking all those classes. You're also doing internships, both on-campus media and off-campus media. All of those things are important to build your skill set. You are training yourselves now to be ready to go out into the future. The more you know now, and I just say, do not wait. I think someone said this earlier, do not wait to be asked. If you're a freshman now, somebody needs some help over the TV station, the radio station, the student newspaper. If you're a sophomore, do the same thing. If you're a junior, go for those competitive internships, or you're a senior, go for those competitive internships. I also have to say, at the Pulitzer Center, Hampton is one of our partner schools, and we have a reporting fellowship each year. We select one student from Hampton among our 40 partner schools to produce a reporting project that is of their own design and of their own making. It could be here in the United States, or it could be around the globe. I have to shout out Nia White, whose story was on, I think it was a tooth removal among West Africans living in Sweden. Okay, this is Nia White, one of your students. And then also this year we have Morgan Norris, and I spoke with her, and she's going to be our reporting fellow. Shout out to Morgan, is going to be one of our reporting fellows. So I encourage you to do that. Here's an opportunity that's right here, $3,000 to run with, and you can be a sophomore, junior, or a senior.
That's incredible. The number one question I have gotten from students, specifically in the last few months, even today during my time on campus, is, what advice do you have for getting my first job upon graduation in this climate, this economic environment? Jobs are scarce, layoffs are happening in many organizations, and it's more competitive than ever. And number one, everything you said helpful. Charlottesville sounds like an amazing place to be. I'm sure there are opportunities at all of your places. Be creative and flexible and where that first move is. It might not be the hottest city to live in. It might not be your dream job for that first job, but get in the door. Get in the door by any means necessary, because that will put you on a path to get where you need to be, whether it's through a fellowship, whether it's an internship, quick gem, whether it's, hey, I met you at this thing, I'd love to come in and shadow someone from your team. You go in there, you put on that Hampton, wowness and wow them and let that lead to your first internship, but find a way in that might not go through the direct path that you thought you were going to take. Number one. Number two, and we've used this word a lot up here, be entrepreneurial. Be entrepreneurial in gaining experience. You guys all have cell phones. Your cell phone, I said this earlier, your cell phone is an editor, it's a camera, you can create graphics, you can do everything that you could do in a newsroom on that one device. It doesn't matter who it's for. If it's for your portfolio, if it's for your reel, go stand outside of Ogden and go shoot video, go shoot interviews, shoot MOSs, put together a package. It doesn't have to be for an assignment. Like you said, don't wait for someone to tell you to do it. Go create the content yourself, and then when it's time for you to apply for internships, when it's time for you to showcase what you could do, it might even be an AI person interviewing you, but you can at least say, here's some examples of the work that I've done. We don't ask you, well, where did this air? We want to see examples of work that you've done and showing that entrepreneurial ability. I remember when I was a student here, before we had cell phones, I stayed at VC, our classes were in Armstrong, and one of my first assignments was to shoot something at Holland, and we had these huge cameras the size of these speakers, and I was like, I don't want to be a camera person. This is a lot. This is heavier than my whole body. But I also knew that wasn't necessarily my path, especially when I heard there are 100 people that may apply for a reporter job, but maybe 6 people that apply for a producer job. And the producer gets to decide the stories and the order of the stories and how to tell those stories. And that person is the leader of that broadcast. I knew if 100 people were going for that job, I'm going to go for this one that has 6 people going for it, where I have more influence and more direction over what's happening. So think creatively about what path you take. You may have thought all your life, I want to go down this road, but especially in our field, there might be 10 similar jobs that give you a similar level of satisfaction that might just give you a different way in.
So I'm going to give you an answer that takes for granted that you have these great mentors, you have a great journalism school, you have programs like at the Pulitzer Center that you're learning these technical skills, you're learning how to shoot, you're learning how to craft a story or write a lead or write a headline. What I would say is learn a language. Learn a second language. Or learn how to read a financial statement. Go take an economics class and take it seriously. Learn how to take a stats class. I love spreadsheets. I love them with all my heart. Take a stats class.
My spirit animal.
Yeah, right? That's one thing ChatGPT is good for. It can write a spreadsheet function quickly. But learn those skills, because like in our newsroom, I tell this to people all the time, I can teach anybody how to write a lead. I can do that quickly. I'm an all right editor. I'm not gonna like brag on myself too much, but I'm an all right editor. I can teach anybody how to write a lead. I cannot teach you how to handle yourself in a community that does not trust journalists. You have to come with those skills and that knowledge. You have to know the history, or you have to have some background in political science or lived experience. So own that. Get that experience that isn't just journalism, because journalism is a craft. And how we do that craft, it's going to change every 3 years. You have to have a background knowledge that gives you critical thinking, gives you somewhere to start.
I would like to second, though, the statistics class, because in my experience, journalists are terrible at math, like terrible. I had a veteran reporter that I had to explain the difference between 1 percentage point and 1% to. They are really bad, so go out there, get those math classes in.
Let me build on, and it really builds on what Rashida was saying. Keep in mind, almost every journalism or news and media company is just that. It's a company. It's a nonprofit company or it's a for-profit company, which means there are lots of different types of jobs in these enterprises. And you shouldn't think of yourself as going to have the same job for the next 30 years. The real question is how you build a portfolio of skills, which means get into the company and do multiple jobs. But these are companies with multiple occupations within them. Don't just think about one of them. In fact, you'll be more valuable over time the more you can frankly get experience in.
And that goes for wherever you may be employed, not just only making yourself valuable to that place, but you want to expand your skills for wherever you may go. And something I share with the young people I mentor and also journalists within our newsroom, because listen, when layoffs hit, it can be a serious blow, especially when you see really incredibly talented, hardworking, dedicated journalists be separated because of money issues. And so the question sometimes comes, well, we're encouraged to know how to do everything. We're encouraged to, show up early and leave late. And sometimes you can do all of those things and still be laid off. And that's incredibly heartbreaking. It is a reminder to us, though, that when we show up in spaces, our work ethic should be excellent because it is a reflection of us personally, because the place in which we live out our purpose can evolve and change. And so if we tie our show up early, stay late, let me learn a new skill only to that specific place that happens to sign our paycheck at that moment in time, we will always be crushed and like, I'm not doing that again. However, if we can expand our minds to say, I'm going to learn this, yes, to benefit where I am now, but also to expand my skill set wherever my journey may unfold. I think if we focus on that part of it, that will help us, because you can really be remarkable, stellar, incredible, irreplaceable, and still find yourself on the other end of a pink slip. And so the commitment to this mission, to this passion, to this purpose, has to be for the overall, no matter where you express that.
Jeffrey, I can't confirm I'm no math scholar at all, so maybe I will consider picking up some more stats classes. But Angeli, I am a great Spanish student, so I can definitely co-sign on the fact that learning a second language is incredibly valuable. Jessica, you talked a lot about mentorship and what it means to be a student journalist who is trying to be productive and successful. And so I want to point this question towards you to start off. How can student journalists who may have fear or uncertainty in these times channel that fear into productivity?
I'll just share this again. You have to continually ask yourself, why do I want to be a journalist? And if the answer is, and you have, just be honest with yourself. If the answer in your heart is that I am studying journalism, or I want to be a journalist so people can know my name, so people will recognize me in the grocery store, so I can be on TV and that will give me value in my life, that is not the reason to do it. Because in this climate, journalists are hated now more than we ever have been. And so the motivation has to be, what truth am I trying to shine a light on? What information do I want to get out there? What story am I assigned, and how I look at it from a purpose, spiritual sense, what story am I assigned to tell in this lifetime? And in every season of your life, that may evolve. And so as I'm speaking with students, and I have to give a shout out to Florida Agricultural Mechanical University, my beloved alma mater, and the journalism school there. I'll go back for homecoming a lot and really sit with the students. I've mentor students here at HU. Kennedy's in the room somewhere, and also at Norfolk State University. But what is your purpose? And if your purpose is superficial, let's just be honest about that. It doesn't mean you're a bad person at all. It just means, well, okay, can we find a deeper reason, or maybe we need to pivot, right? Those are the conversations that I'm having. And if the tried and true reason is, yes, I don't mind being on TV or thousands of people looking at my reel, but my true my true mission is to shine a light on this issue, topic, subject, then that's something that we can expand and that can evolve no matter which way you express your purpose.
And so on the topic of students, Rashida, this is your alma mater, and so you graduated from an HBCU, and so as someone who was a former president of Incredible Media Network, how do Black students, Black aspiring journalists, navigate their identity in the newsroom?
I think it's a superpower. Going to an HBCU, think of all of the things that might make me different in a newsroom. I went to an HBCU, I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman, I'm a mom, I lived in Virginia, all of these things, right? I view those as ways for me to add value or add perspective that maybe other people couldn't add. When I talk about Hampton, and I talk about Hampton a lot, sometimes my coworkers would laugh at me. I had Emancipation Oak in the background of my Zooms, and they were just like, what is that? If you know, you know. But I wore it as a badge of honor because I feel like that allowed me to bring a perspective that maybe nobody else in the room had. And so what I would say is don't hide from it. Find ways to lean into the unique thing about you. Use it to help inform decision making. When we're talking about story selection, and I may add a perspective of, well, if you think of it through this lens, we're not really addressing the needs of this community. Or when we talk about this story, but we're doing it from the perspective of male professionals, but not women professionals. And so I was always, I won't say always, because it was something I had to grow into. I grew into the idea of, rather than trying to assimilate and pretend that wasn't a part of my identity, let me lean into the thing that allows me to add value to the conversation. And so I think, especially in this time where covering stories, covering angles from the totality of our audiences is critically important. The thing that makes you different in that environment, the thing that makes you different in that newsroom, or even if you're a strat comms major, the thing that allows you to add a different perspective to the conversation, you should view as your superpower. Lean into it, don't hide from it, and use it as a way to help you get further.
Yeah, I want to add to that. A big piece of journalism, as still is the case in almost every job, is the relationships you have, right? And in journalism, a particular relationship is, can you get sources in the multiple communities that you're trying to cover? If you as a person of color or a person in a rural area or you name it, HBCU student, you've got relationships that others don't have because of the journey that you've traveled. You've got to lean into that. That brings value to the table in a huge way, and it brings truth to the table. And so, yeah, in my experience, we're trying to cover the public schools where the overwhelming majority of students are students of color, and we don't have folks who can cover those places who are also of color. It's a huge challenge. And so there are plenty of places where the opportunity just grows, in fact, because of your experience.
I graduated from Clark Atlanta University. It was Clark College when I went. So, you have all that love at HBCU. You know how it is. We got all that love at HBCU. Right, Dr. Ford over there? I see you. We've known each other since we were juniors in college, and we had the opportunity to go to Northwestern for a summer program and learn about journalism. So you have all that love at a HBCU. And then I went to Northwestern for grad school, and I was like one of 5 black students in the master's program that graduated. And so, here's like an identity crush. Then I went to the Providence Journal, 11% black people in Rhode Island. Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. That was another, And then I just had to grow into my identity, just kind of follow up on what Rashida is saying. Just had to grow into my identity. When I was at the Providence Journal, I'm like, okay, if Angela Davis is speaking at a local college, and if I don't cover it, it's not going to get covered. If somebody's not going to cover the Kwanzaa story, it's not going to get covered. If my husband out there, I have to give him a shout out, didn't cover the Black Panthers, because he was at the Providence Journal with me at the same time, it wasn't going to get covered. So it's that blend of, okay, you want to have that journalism excellence, but then you also want to bring your culture to bear in your workplace, and it may be fearful, it may be scary, but if you don't do it, someone else may not. I just want to say that. So yeah, your culture is valuable, your digital skills are valuable, your traditional journalism skills are valuable. Bring all three of those together, synthesize them, and you'll do great in the marketplace.
And one thing I would suggest, no matter where you wind up, Providence, Northwestern, some town where maybe there aren't a lot of people who look like you have had similar life experiences, go find the people who do. I will tell you, every single time a Hampton student found me, they would find me by email, in the cafeteria, wherever, and they would mention, oh, I'm an intern here from Hampton. I always made time for them. Come into my office, let's sit down, let me help you do this. I mean, when they started telling me like, oh, I'm Onyx 9, I'm like, oh my God, I'm Onyx 5. Like, I feel really old right now. But that connection that you had with, we all sat in Ogden Hall at one point. We all did the same things on the same campus. Or even if it's just a student of color who came from another university and is just looking for community, you know, folks like us are always willing to lend a hand. You take the initiative to reach out to that person to make a connection. The worst thing that could happen is they ignore your email, or they ignore your advance, or they never follow up. But reach out to them, because more often than not, especially when you get to a point in your career where you're as driven by the purpose of the industry as you are by lifting as we climb, we want to be helpful. And so find those connections, find those opportunities, reach out to people, whether it's in your organization or just in the community, or people who have had life experiences, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be very willing to help you.
And I think all of those points kind of raise discussion about the fact that some news is some news to someone, right? Not everyone might think that all news is equal, or that some things are important or some topics are important, but in certain communities, some topics are more important than others, and they're actually imperative to learn about. And so one of my last questions before we move on to the questions from the audience and the ones submitted from the attendees is this for every single person: if you had to provide everyone in this room with one action item that they could take with them to navigate this media landscape after this discussion, what would it be?
I would just say more of a encouragement, and that's for all of us. It's not really an action item other than just staying focused and staying encouraged. And I see you, Zaya, who is one of our former PAs, and just to say her story, who she's now a producer here and a graduate of HU. But she was encouraged. She stayed encouraged. She had graduated and was still looking for her first job in journalism. And those connections came my way, and I called her up one day, and she came to work for us. And, I just applaud her, and, that can happen to you. It's just staying encouraged and not giving up, because it's easy. It really is easy right now to give up, and that's just one thing I'd say.
Just to maybe follow up on that and some of what has been said on the panel tonight, this is really a profession of passion. I'm not going to lie to you, we don't get paid a lot. But I've stuck with it because of the outcomes, because of the impact I have on a community. The things I will have done when my career is over far outweigh all the financials that I would have gotten in another job. I'm passionate about it. I stay with it. I've been in this business for 35 years, and I still love it. As I often say, I love the work, job, so-so. So it is a profession of passion. And just to follow up on what was said here tonight, you have to be passionate about it if you're going to get into it, because you can do a lot of good in this job and get paid nothing for it.
Maurice, do you want to add anything to that? I didn't even put you on the spot.
I thought you were
We can
thinking
get back
about
to
we
you.
get paid nothing.
He was marinating on
I
that
was thinking
word.
about getting paid. It's like, well, wait a minute now. Look, I just finished this biography of Frederick Douglass. And, Frederick Douglass was born enslaved and then escaped slavery and and then became this incredible leading abolitionist, was worried that the Civil War would end before slavery ended, and so wanted to make sure that we struggled until ending slavery was a explicit aim of the Civil War, and then after that started fighting against lynching until the day he died, right? Stay hopeful, stay committed to change, and just remember that in our country, substantial change has usually included some kind of struggle, right? It usually hasn't been given to us. We're not supposed to get political, so I'm not going to get political, but we are living in a testing time. And it's the time that might discourage you from thinking about this. But it's actually now the time that you need to renew your spirit to struggle, because that's really what makes this country unique. Is, if you look at our founding documents, we acknowledge imperfection and say that we need these rights to struggle to make a more perfect union. Journalism is one way to contribute to a more perfect union. We got to keep the faith. That would be my action item.
That was great. I will start with a plea. We need you guys. As we pass the torch to the next generation of journalists who are creating the new rules of journalism, we need people like you who are passionate, who are mission-driven, who are not afraid to work hard, who are not afraid to innovate. And so I plead to each one of you, if this is a field that you want to go into, know it in your heart and pour everything you have into it. Tactically, I would say, lean into all of the ideals we learned here at Hampton. To be early is on time. Work harder than anybody in the room. Prepare better than anybody in the room. Don't be afraid to raise your hand to do more. All of those things are going to serve you well. You heard a lot of that up here, whether it's learn a new skill, learn a new language, teach yourself something that you don't know, create your own content, be the masters of your destiny. You're getting all of that here. It's a matter of how much of it you scoop up and pour into the next phase of your lives and career, but we need you guys.
I think we're in a dangerous moment. We're in a situation in this country right now where, I've worked in places where democracy has been in peril, where countries have lost their democracies, or they are in a one-party controlled system. And the precursor to this is very often control of media streams. Political powers buying up or controlling distribution streams or access. And we are in that moment now. And it is creating a lot of uncertainty. And it is creating things that you will see, like hiring freezes or folks doing a lot of risk management. It's happening. What I would say, if I could ask for one sort of action item, is if there is a source of information that's doing the work that you trust, that you feel represents the communities you care about well. Maybe they're small, maybe they're big, maybe it's a single person. Support them now. Subscribe now. Buy the advertisement now. Don't wait. Don't wait until they can no longer do that work that's so valuable.
I just have one simple action item. Find Professor Lynn Walls, who runs the Reporting Fellows program, who is our campus partner, and apply for our fellowship. This will give you the opportunity to see the world. It will give you an outstanding clip so that when you're before all of my colleagues here and you have your resume, you have your clip reel, you have whatever your piece is, you have something meaningful to show. We need you. We're offering this to you. That's my one action item.
I have an action item, kind of, and just something for all of us to remember. One, I would say strengthen your resolve. Reporting the truth reporting the facts isn't always received well. It will offend people who may try to discredit you. Report the truth and the facts anyway. So always hold fast to that. And always remember that journalism is the cornerstone of our democracy. It is the fourth estate. Always, always, always remember to fight for it.
And so while I'm not technically a panelist, I still have some advice to offer. This is something that my dad shared with me in preparation for the panel, something that his colleague shared with him, and said there's a reason that you have one mouth and two ears, and so you can listen more than you speak. And so with that, are there any questions from the audience?
Love your dad.
I'm so glad you think that. He's very, very appreciative of all of you being here. He's watching from back home, so hey, Dad, I know you're watching from LA.
Hi, Dad.
So are there any questions from the audience? I think we have time for a couple. And there are some mics present on either aisle. Okay, right here in the suit. Yeah, you can go first. You can go first.
I actually have a suggestion about the localism. I'm Sean Bowers. I've written for the New Journaling Guide for the last 29 years. How many people know what the New Journaling Guide is? There are free copies outside, and you can pick those up. So the first thing that the panel said is go back to localism. They talked about the Chicago Defender, black newspaper. They talked about Ida B. Wells, black publisher. They talked about Frederick Douglass, first black publisher of the black newspaper ever. Created black newspaper. Does everyone know that you could go and write an article right now and submit it to the New Journaling Guide, double-spaced, 2 pages, on any topic, any issue you want?
That's great.
You know why that's getting back to the basics. That gives all of you the voice, because across the top of the guide it says, published since 1900, so that no good cause shall lack a champion, and evil shall not thrive unopposed. Does that describe where we are right now? I think it does. Why was Ms. Andrews, our 40-year publisher, not invited to be on the panel if she's the bricks and mortar that all of y'all's careers were built on? And I only offer that to say that you have to include the media that started all this, the print that these folks are built on. Because y'all are all doing the next generation's work, and everyone in this room is doing the forward generation's work from what these people are laying now. Invite Ms. Andrews. She's 40 years as the publisher of the year of the 200 black newspapers. That was an opportunity that was missed.
Thank you.
For all those asking questions, I just say that you introduce yourself, the organization that you're with, and then ask the panelists that you're directing your question to specifically, if it's for a specific panelist.
Hello, Justin Pierre with Leverage Your Influence Media. Thank you all for sharing your experience and expertise. The Infinite Dow recently reported that podcasting is officially mainstream. 55% of people in America over the age of 12 are listening to them monthly. And so it's disrupting the media landscape. Now, how can communication departments or HBCUs leverage the opportunity to engage with future students and leverage their media skills to get a piece of the $30 billion pie that's growing in the decades to come?
I think it's a great point. I know part of what Dean Wilson has built here is looking for opportunities to stay ahead of the technology and innovate. In the video, they showed some of the equipment that the students use in a, what I would consider a traditional control room, but that whatever you see on camera today is going to be dated in the next couple of weeks and months, because this is a team in a department that's constantly innovating. I think audio is one of those areas of opportunity. I would also say, I'm going to go back to something we heard up here a few times, don't wait to be assigned, don't wait for the podcasting class to pop up. Go create the content yourself. All you need is a microphone and a way to record the content. And so I think that's an important statistic, leaning into the fact that audio and podcasting is part of the next wave of consumption. And so I think that's a great call to action for folks to get more involved.
And if I can brag on my previous school, Bowie State University, we do have a Podcast World podcasting class, podcasting program. So we're getting a piece of it, but we're getting a piece of it.
And it is very valuable. We have a podcasting studio that we just built at WTKR. And so that's in addition to what we're doing on our traditional broadcasts and social media. So we're there and we're working to embrace that, one, as an additional way to cover topics and engage with our community, but that's also an additional revenue stream that can keep journalists employed.
Not only that, just leveraging, as you were mentioning. So for us, what we're doing, and we're actually launching one this coming weekend with JP Finley, who does our sports. But we record it, we put it on YouTube, and now we're taking the audio and putting it on YouTube. On all the podcast formats. And we're going to do that with all of our different, things like consumer. So whatever topic you fit in, start doing and start creating content that makes sense, that people care about. I think that's where we go from podcasting. It's what you listen to, what you care about. I think right now what everybody loves is, crime. All those crime solving cold cases and things like that. And there was one in D.C. Where there's a young lady, a young girl that went missing, and I think she worked for a online platform, and she created a podcast of her being missing for X amount of years. And from that created a partnership where she started getting interviewed from other media outlets because of that. So creating that content, things that matter, things that you don't think that people are paying attention to, they are paying attention to.
So move over here for your question.
Hi, good afternoon. First, I want to thank you all for speaking this afternoon. It's been great. My name is Jonathan Ward. I'm a third-year journalism major, sports management area of emphasis student from Durham, North Carolina. And my question was basically, if you look at the history as far as it pertains to the First Amendment, originally America was trying to get out of government censorship, with the press, or as far as the government. And then, you start to kind of move more so into the 18th, 19th century, more newspaper, TV, movie focus. And then now we're in this age of social media, digital age, where it's kind of tough because it's like, okay, what do we constitute as a journalist? What do we constitute as an influencer? And then, like, what rights do they have as far as it comes to media? So basically my question was kind of, what do you think is the future look like as far as journalism goes because of social media and its impact that it has, especially too now, because I feel like America at first, they were trying to get out of government censorship, but now with kind of the current political state where we're at, looks like we're kind of going back to that. So kind of what do you feel as far as it goes with that, the future of journalism in social media?
We have to meet people where they are. Jerika Duncan is a correspondent for CBS News, and she does a phenomenal job, if you follow her on the Instagram and the TikTok, of boiling down headlines of the day while also showing her work. And so I think that's really important. It's in an engaging way and something I'm also working to learn from. Sometimes I can get in my head, I do a 5-minute long piece and I'm like, I need to do this in 60 seconds. But if I don't, what are the chances I'm going to expand, the audience of awareness about a topic? So we have to meet people where they are. We have to show our work, what are our sources, and figure out how to do that in a way that we grab someone's attention in a short amount of time.
Jonathan, can I ask you a question? Because this current era of social media consumption and that being, I think Dean Wilson said, like, one of the places where the majority of people in your age group and demographic are consuming, shows that the people are determining where things go, right? Like, we didn't, as professional journalists, decide, oh, social media sounds like the place to put our content. Y'all decided that, and then we had to catch up. So I'll ask you the question, asking for a friend. Where is the next wave? Where are people like you going to, in the next 5 to 10 years, be looking to get information?
Yeah, I know it's kind of been a little bit in limbo, but I think personally, like TikTok, it's like the way you can get, there's never been, especially with the algorithms, like a way that you can get famous as fast, like even YouTube, Instagram, like you look, I feel like that's kind of the future. I think, Twitter is still definitely Instagram. They're just a little bit different, or Instagram is a little more different as far as, sharing more so your life and everything like that, but it can be in that as well. But I think the biggest probably, I would say, TikTok, maybe even like YouTube a little bit as well, but just TikTok because of, one, accessibility, and just because of, like I said, how easy it is kind of to get famous, and you can kind of see that with a lot of people because you'll see people that blow up just in a month, and it's all of a sudden they have a platform they didn't have.
It's helpful, thank you.
We'll go to your question over here.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for panelists for joining us today. It was a very informative conversation. I really did enjoy sitting in on it. My name is Kevin Jones. I am a first-year political science major with emphasis in policy administration, leadership studies minor on a pre-law track from Jackson, Mississippi. I know it's a very long Hampton intro. My question, and this is open to any one of the panelists that want to answer it, but I'm more so concerned as a political science major about the lack of information and the amount of pushback that we're currently getting right now. I'm going to try not to make it too political. However, Mr. Reese, your statement that you made really resonated with me because most people don't necessarily care as much about city council information that comes on the local news, but it's more important. They care more about the restaurants and this, that, but those are things that are actually going to impact us. We see right now in our current political climate, there's a pushback right now. Certain news agencies and outlets are having to do settlements with public figures, $15, $16 million settlements, and they're not covering those public figures in the same way they would have 10 years ago. We're seeing right now that there's a lot of people that are getting pushback on them. There's a lot of journalists that are scared to cover certain figures because of outlets being scared or them being scared that they will face some type of pushback, being sued, or even being imprisoned. So my question is, how do you all think that news outlets do you all think news outlets are still covering as they should be, and why or why not?
Well, so there's a lot to unpack there. You're talking about national news, though, but
Yes.
let's talk about local news. Because one of the things we're really encountering that's new to me in the industry is public information officers for government offices not communicating, not answering questions, not even acknowledging they got the questions. I have never seen so much pushback from public information officers. In fact, it's not even pushback. It's just they kind of ignore the media. And it's a problem because they are doing the business of the public and they aren't telling anyone about it. You know, Virginia Beach Virginia Beach School Board passed a proclamation saying that they're going to, accept the administration's DEI warnings and change their policies on DEI. They did that with no discussion with the public. They just did it one night. It was totally illegal what they did. And trust me, I would love to go to Tribune and say, can we sue them? Because I'm pretty sure we would win. In fact, I suggested it to my boss, and she politely said, are you crazy? Because it costs money. It costs money to take a government body to court. And if any of you have a lot of money and are willing to take the risk, come see me, because I would love to sue them. So there is an onslaught of the Freedom of Information Act that happens almost every year. Almost every year, the legislature, and let me be clear, this is a bipartisan thing. Democrats and Republicans alike do not like to let the public know what's going on. This is not a political thing. This is all politicians want you to not know what they're up to. And it's really a huge, huge problem, and it's increasingly hard to get information. Sorry about that rant. This is something that really, makes my blood boil.
I'm just so glad there are people like you out there whose blood is boiling. Somebody's blood's got to boil when we don't have information about our own local democracy. I think in small communities and rural communities that we serve, one of the problems we have actually is that the local governments themselves are not resourced for the kind of data collection and reporting that they are legally required to do. So it's not, because we're a small community, we might know that person and know they're really dedicated to being a public servant and also just don't have the resources to answer even some fundamental questions sometimes. So, there is a whole systemic problem here about keeping the public informed about what their government is doing. That said, if you're talking about this particular political moment, like I said before, a lot of the newsrooms that you trust and like are under the gun. We have greater costs in terms of our legal cover, safety issues, stories that maybe took 2 days to work on now take 5. We are under the gun, and if you value that work, we really need a whole community to step up and say, yes, public media is important. Yes, my local organization that I trust is important.
So I have 2 follow-up questions.
I'm so sorry. We unfortunately don't have time for any more questions, but all the panelists are going to stick around afterwards, so anyone can come up and ask their own personal questions.
Okay, I'm being asked by administrator to ask the follow-up question.
By all means.
I'll just ask the first follow-up question. Then I wanted to ask you about the sunshine law, Mr. Reese, in regards to what you just said in your answer.
That's in Florida. Here we call it the Freedom of Information Act. It's called the Sunshine Law in Florida, which, by the way, I was a Florida journalist, and back when I was in Florida, it was great. Like, everyone thought Florida was one of the most corrupt states in the nation, but the truth was we just caught them all the time because of the sunshine laws. We don't have what I would call sunshine laws here. We have a Freedom of Information Act that has been pretty much under attack by the legislature since it was enacted. They're constantly writing exemptions to it. I think they're up to nearly 200 now, and they're often poorly written exemptions. Sorry, I'll move on.
I feel you.
I don't want to make this a Freedom of Information Act thing, but I really think that our Freedom of Information Act here in Virginia has been so weakened, it is very hard for legitimate citizens to find out what the government is up to. To me, it's just a scandal.
And so sorry, the last follow-up question is, you all were saying about like how it is going on. My question is, why don't news outlets and journalist outlets come together similar to how a lot of the bigger schools in this country are coming together on this fight against DEI? Why don't they come together and stand up against people who are trying to threaten them from doing their jobs correctly? Why don't you say, no, we're still going to do journalism, stand together instead of letting them stop you from doing journalism how you used to?
Well, there are several examples where news organizations will come together to file lawsuits over FOIA requests, the Freedom of Information Act request, and there was a lawsuit against the state of Virginia for a FOIA request that several people filed to get information from Governor Youngkin's administration. It was over and forgive me if I'm getting some of the details wrong, but it was over a tip line, and we wanted to know, so what's being said on the tip line? This is, public information. And there was a struggle to get that information, and there was a coalition of journalism organizations that filed a lawsuit to get the information that was public. So we are seeing we talk about, even in local TV news, did we break the story? Yes, there is competition in that regard among local journalism organizations. Oh man, the paper broke that story. Oh man, I was working on that and 13 got it first. Of course, there's that, but there is a camaraderie and advocacy that we all share to get the information. So there are examples of when we come together to fight for the information that is public that we should be able to get and share.
So since that is all the time we have for questions, unfortunately we are out of time. I'm so sorry, but all the panelists will be sticking around so you can ask each of them all your personal questions. Yes, I promise they will be talking to you guys right after. Can we have another round of applause for our amazing panelists today? This has been, at least for me personally, such an incredible and transformative conversation that has answered so many of my questions and addressed so many of my concerns as a student journalist. So I want to thank each of our panelists one more time, not only for taking the time to be here today, but for your continued work in this turbulent industry. We thank you all so much for your continued pursuit of public service and the inspiration you have provided for all of the aspiring media professionals in the room. I want to thank Dean Wilson and A.D. Crabb and the Scripps Howard School of Journalism and Communications for awarding me the opportunity to moderate today's panel, and all of you in the audience for your attention and your time and your insights. I think all of us have grown from this conversation. I hope that we all leave with these action items and we can continue to navigate this media landscape together.
Let's give another big round of applause to Nyla Cross as the moderator. This is incredible. And thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Rashida Jones, for being one of the star panelists here. And everybody did such a fantastic job. I mean, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks to the audience for showing up with us, and to all of you online, thank you for watching. And we look forward to more discussions like this continuing. Thank you very much for coming. Good night.